I'm Jillian Harris, 32, and I thought I knew my family. That night at my mom's birthday party in a Mexican restaurant in Salem, Oregon, everything shattered. I'd planned it all, booked the best table, hung streamers, invited their closest friends to make her day special. The laughter was loud, the tacos were perfect, and I was smiling, thinking we were finally close again. Then my dad stood up, glass in hand, and dropped a bomb. "We're taking back the house you're living in," he said, voice cold. "It's ours. You've got 48 hours to pack." My stomach dropped. The room spun. I stared at him, waiting for a joke that never came. "What?" I managed, my voice sharp. He shrugged, casual as ever. "We'll talk after the cake." My mom just looked away, silent. I didn't wait for the candles. I grabbed my purse, walked out, my heels clicking on the tile, heart pounding with questions. Was the house really theirs? I'd poured everything into it. New floors, furniture, my life. How could they demand it back? Something felt wrong, like a secret buried deep. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. They thought I'd roll over, but they didn't know me. Not anymore. What I uncovered next wasn't just betrayal. It was a lie so big it tore our family apart. And I fought back harder than they ever expected. If family secrets hit hard, subscribe now to see how I turned their lies against them and took back my life. That night, I paced my living room, questioning everything. The house I'd called home for years, had I been wrong about it all along? I'd sunk thousands into this place, believing it was temporary, that I was just staying here until Dad and Mom sorted out their lives. New hardwood floors, a custom kitchen island, curtains I'd picked out myself, every corner screamed my effort. But Dad's words at the party, his cold demand to take back the house, gnawed at me. I wasn't about to let them push me out without a fight. I started with the house itself. Room by room, I checked every detail. The dining table I'd bought last spring, the bookshelf I'd refinished, the paint I'd chosen for the walls. Each one a piece of me. If this was their house, why had I been the one pouring money into it? Doubt crept in, sharp and heavy. I climbed the stairs to the attic, where old boxes gathered dust. Maybe there was something, anything, to explain what was going on. In a corner, buried under holiday decorations, I found a metal lockbox. My hands shook as I pried it open. Inside were papers, utility bills, mortgage statements, all in my name, Jillian Harris. But one document caught my eye, a yellowed envelope labeled Property Records. My heart raced. I pulled out a title deed dated years back, from before I'd moved in. The names weren't Dad's or Mom's. They were my grandparents'. And there, in faded ink, was a note to Jillian upon our passing. My breath caught. Was this real? Had they lied to me? I grabbed my phone, dialing a locksmith before I could second-guess myself. "I need new locks on every door," I told him, voice steady. "Can you come first thing tomorrow?" He agreed, promising to be there by 8. I hung up, feeling a spark of control. If Dad and Mom thought they could just walk in, they were wrong. This house wasn't theirs to claim, not yet, not until I knew the truth. Next, I needed answers. I scrolled through my contacts, landing on a lawyer I'd met at a networking event last year. Her name was Ellen Sharp, and no nonsense. I sent her a text, urgent. "Need to verify property ownership. Can we talk tomorrow?" Her reply came fast. "Call me at 9. I set a reminder, my mind racing. If this house was mine, why had Dad acted like it was his? What else were they hiding back in the attic? I sifted through more papers. Tax records, all in my name. A letter from a bank addressed to me, mentioning a paid-off mortgage. My head spun. I'd been paying utilities, taxes, everything, thinking I was helping them out. But these documents told a different story. One page mentioned a trust, something about inheritance for Jillian Harris. I didn't understand it all, but it was enough to make me question every word Dad had ever said about this place. The clock read 2 a.m. I sat on the attic floor, papers scattered around me. My whole life in this house felt like a lie. I'd trusted them, believed their story about letting me stay here out of kindness. But that note from my grandparents, it changed everything. I wasn't just a guest in their house. This was mine, or at least it might be. I needed Ellen to confirm it to tell me what these papers meant. Before bed, I double-checked the windows, the back door, every entry point. I wasn't taking chances. If Dad showed up with a key, he'd find himself locked out. My phone buzzed a text from Mom. I ignored it, not ready to hear her excuses. I climbed into bed, clutching the envelope from the attic. Sleep didn't come easy. My mind churned with questions. Why had they lied? What were they planning? I didn't know yet, but I was done being their pawn. Tomorrow, I'd start fighting back. The next morning, my lawyer had unsettling news. Ellen's voice crackled through the phone, calm but urgent. Jillian, I ran a credit check like you asked. Your dad opened a loan in your name, $3,000 taken last year. My heart sank. I gripped the phone, pacing the kitchen. What do you mean in my name? I asked, voice tight. She explained Dad had used my social security number, my address, everything. A small business loan tied to my credit without my consent. I felt sick. How could he do this behind my back? I hung up, my mind racing. This wasn't just about the house anymore. Dad had crossed a line, digging into my financial life like it was his to control. I opened my laptop, logging into my bank account. Sure enough, there was a notification, a credit inquiry I hadn't authorized. My fingers trembled as I dialed the bank. I need to freeze my credit, I told the representative, keeping my tone firm. Someone's using my information without permission. She walked me through the steps, promising a lock within hours. I added fraud alerts for good measure, my pulse pounding. If Dad could do this, what else was he capable of? Next, I turned to the house itself. If they were messing with my credit, they might try to get in here too. I checked the front door, the back, every window latch. The new locks I'd installed gave me some comfort, but not enough. I'd bought a security camera last year after a neighborhood break-in scare. I pulled up the app, testing the feed. The porch was clear, the backyard empty. I set alerts for any motion just in case Dad or Mom showed up unannounced. I wasn't paranoid, I was prepared. Sitting at my desk, I replayed Ellen's words. A loan in my name. The papers I'd found in the attic flashed in my mind, bills, a deed, my grandparents' names. Dad and Mom had always said this house was theirs, that I was staying here as a favor. But the documents didn't add up. Why were my grandparents' names on the title? Why was I paying taxes, utilities, everything? A cold realization hit me, they'd been lying. Maybe the house wasn't theirs at all. Maybe they'd been stringing me along, letting me pour money into a place they planned to take. I needed answers, and fast. Ellen had mentioned checking property records at the county office. I searched online for the Marion County Clerk's website. Salem's records were public accessible with a few clicks. My hands hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to dive in right then, but I knew I'd need official confirmation. I sent Ellen another text. Can you pull the property records for my house? I think my parents are hiding something. Her reply was instant on it. I'll call you tomorrow with details. I exhaled, feeling a mix of dread and resolve. If they were hiding the truth, I'd find it. Before shutting my laptop, I checked my email, half expecting something from Mom or Dad. Nothing yet, but I knew they'd reach out soon. They weren't the type to back down. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The loan was just the start. What else had they done? Had they been planning this for years, letting me fix up the house while they schemed? The thought made my stomach churn. I'd trusted them, believed their story about helping me out. Now every memory felt tainted. I stood, grabbing a notepad. I jotted down steps: meet Ellen, visit the county office, double-check the security system. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was taking control. If Dad thought he could use my name, my credit, my home, he was about to learn I wasn't the pushover he expected. I tucked the notepad away, my jaw set. The truth was out there, and I was going to dig until I found it. The next day, my phone lit up with their demands. I was brewing coffee when the security app pinged a motion alert from the front porch. My heart skipped. I opened the feed, seeing Dad and Mom standing there. Dad rattling the doorknob, His face twisted in frustration. "Jillian, open this door," he shouted, pounding the wood. Mom stood behind him, arms crossed, her voice sharp through the camera. "You changed the locks." "Really?" I froze, watching them try their old key, useless against the new deadbolts I'd had installed. They left after 10 minutes, but not before Dad yelled, "This isn't over." My hands shook as I set the phone down. They'd come within 48 hours, just as Dad had warned. Then the texts started. Dad's came first, cold and direct. "Give us the house. We need it to fix our finances." I stared, disbelief turning to anger. Fix their finances. They'd sold their rental home to bankroll my sister's failed business, and now they wanted my home. Mom's email followed, her words dripping with guilt. "We're struggling, honey. Hand over the house so we can start over." My fingers tightened around my mug. They weren't asking, they were demanding, as if I owed them for their bad choices. My phone buzzed again, this time with an X notification. My sister had posted publicly, "Jillian Harris cares more about her house than her own family. She's selfish, tearing us apart." My stomach churned as I read it. She'd tagged me, letting all of Salem friends, neighbors, strangers see her lies. Comments flooded in. "Shame on you, Jillian," from a former coworker. "How could you do this to your parents?" from a neighbor. Each word stung, a public attack meant to break me. I wanted to fire back, to tell the world they were the ones scheming, but I held back. She wanted a fight, I wouldn't give her one. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. It was Renee, my friend since high school, holding 2 takeout coffees. "I saw your sister's post," she said, stepping inside, her voice soft. "It's rough, but maybe you could talk to them. They're in a tough spot." She handed me a coffee, her eyes searching mine. "Family's worth fighting for, right?" I sipped the drink, its warmth doing nothing to ease the knot in my chest. Renee didn't know about the loan Dad took in my name, the lies about the house. "They're not struggling." "Renee," I said, my voice firm, "they're trying to take what's mine." She frowned, pushing back. "But what if you just met them halfway? Sorted it out?" I shook my head, resolute. "No. They don't get to bully me out of my home." After Renee left, I sat at my desk, rereading the texts, the email, the X post. Each one felt like a blade cutting deeper. Dad's demands, Mom's manipulation, my sister's betrayal, they were relentless. I'd spent years thinking this house was theirs, pouring my savings into it, believing I was the lucky one. Now they wanted it because their gamble on my sister's business had crashed. I blocked Dad's number, then Mom's, my finger steady. My sister's contact stared back at me. I left it unblocked, a small defiance. Let her see I wasn't caving. I opened X again, the post still racking up comments. I could have responded, spilled the truth. But that's what she wanted, a public spectacle. Instead, I reported it for targeted harassment, my clicks deliberate. It wouldn't erase the damage, but it was something. I checked the security app, replaying the clip of Dad banging on the door. No new alerts, but I wasn't relaxing. I added "call locksmith" for extra deadbolt to my to-do list, my pen pressing hard into the paper. Alone on the couch, the weight of their attacks settled in. They weren't just fighting for money, they were trying to break my spirit. Dad's shouting, Mom's emails, my sister's lies. They thought they could guilt me into surrender. But I wasn't that Jillian anymore. I'd seen their deception, felt their betrayal. I stuck a note on my fridge. Stand firm. It was my promise to myself. They could push all they wanted, I wasn't giving up. A week later, Aunt Marjorie called from Portland. Her voice, warm but heavy, came through the phone. "Jillian, we need to talk about the house," she said. I gripped the receiver, my pulse quickening. Aunt Marjorie rarely called. Her falling out with Barbara years ago had kept her at a distance. "What about it?" I asked, bracing myself. She took a breath, then dropped the bombshell. "That house isn't Charles and Barbara's. It's yours. Your grandparents left it to you in their will." My knees buckled. I sank into a chair, the words echoing in my head. "Mine," I whispered. Marjorie explained, her tone steady but laced with regret. Before my grandparents passed, they'd told her their plan. The house in Salem was meant for me, Jillian Harris, their only granddaughter to inherit outright. They'd written it in their will clear as day. But Charles and Barbara had kept it secret, telling me I was just staying there, that it was their property. My hands shook as I processed it. All those years fixing up the floors, paying taxes, believing I was a guest, they'd lied to me. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, my voice sharp. Marjorie sighed. I tried years ago, but Barbara shut me out. She said it was their business, not mine. I didn't push your mom, and I haven't spoken since our fight over the family trust. Her words stung, but they made sense. Barbara's coldness, Charles's demands, even Brooke's attacks, it all clicked. They'd built a web of lies to keep me in the dark, to use the house for their own plans. I pressed Marjorie for details. The will's filed with the county, she said. Your grandparents named you as the sole heir. Charles and Barbara were supposed to transfer the title to you when you turned 25, but they didn't. I only found out they were claiming it when Brooke called me last week begging for money. My blood boiled. Brooke had dragged Marjorie into this too. I thanked her, promising to call back, and hung up, my mind racing. The papers I'd found in the attic, the deed, the note with my name, suddenly made sense. They weren't just clues, they were proof. I dialed Ellen, my lawyer, immediately. Marjorie says the house is mine, left by my grandparents' will. I told her, my voice urgent. Can you verify it at the county office? Ellen's response was calm but focused. I'll pull the records today. Meet me at the Marion County Clerk's office tomorrow morning. I agreed, setting my phone down with a sense of purpose. If Marjorie was right, Charles and Barbara had no claim. They'd manipulated me, used my trust, and now they were desperate to cash out. The next morning, I drove to the county office, my hands tight on the wheel. Ellen was waiting outside, a folder in hand. I found the will, she said, leading me inside. We sat at a clerk's desk, flipping through documents. There it was, my grandparents' will, dated a decade ago, naming me as the heir to the house on Oak Street. My name, Jillian Harris, was typed in bold. I stared, my throat tight. Charles and Barbara had never mentioned it, not once. They'd let me pour thousands into repairs taxes, all while planning to sell it out from under me. Ellen pointed to a clause. They were executors of the estate, she said. They had a duty to inform you, but they didn't. This could be fraud. Fraud. The word hit like a punch. I thought of Charles's loan in my name, Barbara's emails, Brooke's lies on X. It wasn't just greed, it was calculated. I nodded, my resolve hardening. What's next? I asked. Ellen jotted notes. We file a claim to enforce the will. I'll draft it today, but we need the original deed to confirm. I remembered the attic papers, promising to bring them tomorrow. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table, the weight of Marjorie's words settling in. My grandparents had wanted me to have this house a home, a future. Charles and Barbara had stolen that, twisted it for their own gain. Brooke's involvement hurt the most she'd known, or at least suspected, and still turned on me. I wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. I was fighting for the truth, for what was mine. I pulled out a notebook, writing one word: justice. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. 2 months later, a notice from the county hit me hard. The envelope, stamped with the Marion County Clerk's seal, sat heavy in my hands. I tore it open, scanning the words, title amendment filed by Charles Harris. My stomach dropped. Charles had forged documents, slipping his name onto the deed of my house, the same house my grandparents had left to me. The audacity burned through me. I'd spent years trusting him, pouring my savings into this place, only to find he'd tried to steal it right under my nose. I called Ellen, my lawyer, my voice shaking with rage. Charles altered the deed, I said, reading her the notice. Can we stop this? Ellen was calm but firm. We have the will from your grandparents naming you, Jillian Harris, as the sole heir. That's our weapon. She told me to meet her at her office with the attic papers, the deed, the note, everything. I grabbed the lockbox, my hand steady despite the anger coursing through me. We'd built a case, and now it was time to fight back. At Ellen's office, we laid out the evidence. The will pulled from the county records clearly stated my grandparents' wishes the house on Oak Street was mine. The original deed matched with no mention of Charles or Barbara. But a new filing dated weeks ago showed Charles's name added claiming co-ownership. "This is fraud," Ellen said, her pen circling the forged document. "We'll file an emergency motion to block it." I nodded, my jaw tight. We submitted the will, the original deed, and my tax records proof I'd been maintaining the house. The clerk accepted them, promising a review within days. Ellen dug deeper, uncovering more. An investigator she'd hired traced Charles and Barbara's finances. They'd sold their rental property 2 years back, sinking the proceeds over $100,000 into Brooks' startup, a boutique clothing line. It had tanked within months, leaving them desperate. "That's why they're after your house," Ellen said, sliding a report across her desk. "They're broke, and they think selling your property will bail them out." I stared at the numbers, my anger mixing with pity. They'd gambled on Brooks' dream and lost. But that didn't justify stealing from me. The final straw was the loan Charles had taken in my name. That $3,000 debt uncovered months ago wasn't a one-off. Ellen found 2 more unauthorized accounts tied to my Social Security number totaling $10,000. My head spun. Charles and Barbara hadn't just hidden the will, they'd used my identity to fund their schemes. I leaned forward, my voice cold. "I want to sue them. For everything." Ellen nodded, pulling out a legal pad. "We'll file for fraud, identity theft, and breach of fiduciary duty. They were executors of your grandparents' estate. They had no right to manipulate you. We drafted the lawsuit that afternoon. The complaint listed it all: the concealed will, the forged deed, the unauthorized loans. I signed my name, Jillian Harris, with a steady hand, each stroke a declaration of war." Ellen filed it with the county court, her efficiency a lifeline. "This will freeze any sale of the house," she said. "They can't touch it until the judge rules." I exhaled relief, mixing with dread. This was real now, a legal battle against my own family. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table, the county notice still in front of me. The security cameras hummed, a reminder of the locks I'd changed, the steps I'd taken to protect what was mine. Charles and Barbara's desperation made sense now. Brooks' failed business, their empty bank accounts. But their betrayal cut deeper than ever. They'd lied, manipulated, and forged documents, all to take what my grandparents had left me. Brooks' role stung too. She'd known about their plans, maybe even pushed them. I opened my laptop, checking for updates from Ellen. An email confirmed the motion was filed with a hearing set for next month. I closed the screen, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about justice, about reclaiming what was mine. The court date came in early spring. I sat in the Marion County courtroom, my hands clasped tightly as the judge read the verdict. Charles and Barbara were found guilty of fraud, concealing my grandparents' will, forging the deed, and misusing my identity for loans. The defendants will pay a fine of $10,000, the judge declared, her voice steady. I exhaled, relief washing over me. The house on Oak Street was mine, as it always had been. Charles sat stone-faced, Barbara's eyes downcast. They didn't look at me, not once. Word spread fast in Salem. By the next week, neighbors who once nodded politely now turned away when Charles and Barbara passed. Old friends stopped inviting them to gatherings, their names whispered in disdain at the local diner. "Did you hear about the Harrises I overheard at the grocery store?" My cart paused by the bread aisle. "Tried to steal their daughter's house. The shame clung to them, a public fall from grace." I felt no joy in it, just a quiet satisfaction that their lies had caught up with them. My phone pinged one evening with a message from Brooke. "I'm sorry, Jillian," it read. "I was wrong to post those things. Can we talk?" I stared at the words, her apology hollow after months of venom. Her ex-post had painted me as the villain rallying strangers against me. Now, with the court ruling public, those same strangers turned on her. Comments on her profile called her out. "You lied about your sister," one read. "Disgraceful," said another. I hovered over the reply button, tempted to lash out. Instead, I set the phone down, leaving her message unanswered. She didn't deserve my forgiveness, not yet. I decided to sell the house. It was mine, hard-won, but every room carried memories of betrayal. Charles's demands, Barbara's emails, the locks I'd changed to keep them out. I met with a realtor, a sharp woman named Clara, who walked through the house noting its upgrades. "You've done wonders here, Gillian Harris," she said, jotting down the refinished floors, the new roof I'd paid for. We listed it at a competitive price, and within weeks, a young couple offered above asking. I signed the sale papers, my signature steady, and the profit, nearly $200,000, hit my new bank account, one Charles and Barbara could never touch. I opened that account the day after the verdict at a credit union across town. Every cent from the sale went there, a fortress for my future. I sat at my temporary apartment, a small but bright place I'd rented, and checked the balance online. The numbers glowed, a testament to my fight. I'd spent years believing I was a tenant in my own home, manipulated by those I trusted most. Now I was free, financially, emotionally, completely. The community's reaction to Charles and Barbara didn't fade. A neighbor, Mrs. Larson, stopped me at the mailbox one day. "You did the right thing," she said, her voice kind but firm. "They had no right to treat you like that." Others nodded in agreement when I passed their support, a quiet balm. Salem was small, and trust was currency. Charles and Barbara had spent theirs. I heard they'd moved to a smaller house, scraping by their social circle, gone. Brooke's messages kept coming, each one more desperate. "Please, Gillian." I didn't know everything one said. I didn't reply. Her words on X had cut deep, turning friends against me, and her apology felt like too little, too late. I archived her texts, letting silence be my answer. Maybe one day I'd forgive her, but not now, not when the wounds were still fresh. I walked through my apartment, the walls bare but full of possibility. The money from the house sale was a foundation, a chance to start over. I didn't need the house to feel at home anymore. I'd built that strength within myself. I pulled out a notebook, writing one word, forward. It was my promise, my truth. Charles, Barbara, and Brooke had tried to take everything, but I'd won, not just the house, but my life back. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment, finally free. The space was small, but mine filled with light and the scent of fresh paint. I'd hung a few photos, my favorite books stacked on a shelf, each choice a step toward a life I built alone. My job at a local nonprofit kept me busy, drafting proposals by day, meeting colleagues for coffee after hours. For the first time in years, I felt peace. No demands, no lies, just the quiet rhythm of my own days. I hadn't spoken to Charles, Barbara, or Brooke since the trial. Their numbers stayed blocked, their messages unread. I'd seen enough of their manipulation, Charles's schemes, Barbara's guilt trips, Brooke's attacks. Cutting them out wasn't easy, but it was necessary. My inbox was empty of their names, and I wanted it that way. I'd learned to protect my boundaries, to choose myself over their chaos. Looking back, I realized how much I'd grown. Their betrayal, claiming my home, using my identity, taught me a hard truth. Family isn't always who you trust. You have to fight for your rights, even against those closest to you. I'd stood up, faced their lies, and won. That strength, forged in courtrooms and sleepless nights, was my greatest victory. Never again would I let anyone manipulate my future. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. Your support kept me going, and I hope my story inspires you to stand firm no matter the odds. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Join me as I share more lessons from this wild ride. Here's to new beginnings and to never letting anyone take what's yours.